Hi, I'm actor Ian Champion, and welcome to History of Horror Cinema, my personal podcast tour of the good, bad, and the ugly of horror movie history. If you like what you hear, please don't forget to hit subscribe. The Monster Maker, 1944. When Poverty Row studio PRC released The Monster Maker in April 1944, it was their first horror movie for almost 18 months. The result had better production values and serviceable performances than usual, but drags interminably in the second half, failing to utilize two standard horror components that in other hands would have jacked up the pace: a disfigured victim of a mad scientist and a gorilla on the loose. Director Sam Newfield had already given us the two George Zucco vehicles of The Mad Monster and Dead Men Walk, both of which I've covered, and neither of which were in danger of reaching a quality threshold due to his pursuit of phenomenal credit volume over substance. The screenplay and story was down to Larry Williams, Pierre Gendron, Martin Mooney, and Nell O'Day, which always beggars belief as to how so many people are needed for such meager results. For the role of the medical madman Dr. Ivan Markov, PRC was supremely lucky to get J Carrol Naish at a point when his career was on a high. His work on The Monster Maker, along with the same year's Jungle Woman and House of Frankenstein, all fell right between two Academy Award-nominated performances of his, as the Italian Giuseppe in Bogart war picture Sahara and Hispanic Father Charlie in A Medal for Benny. He made versatile use of his indeterminate ethnic appearance, which in reality was of Irish-American origin. Dr. Markov is very much a typical Bela Lugosi part, being largely made up of Eastern European charm and a hypnotic stare, concealing some secret lab experimentation. Naish brings a dark and subtly sinister edge to his obsession with Patricia, low-budget stalwart Wanda Mackay, the daughter of Ralph Morgan's concert pianist Lawrence. At a recital, Markov believes her to be the exact double of his dead wife. "It is like seeing the dead return to life," he whispers in awe to his assistant Maxine, Tala Birel. Birel was a Romanian who came to Hollywood and was labeled, like many, as a second Garbo due to her remote, frosty beauty. Here she uses this to convey a seething jealousy at having her loyalty to Markov thrown over in favor of his unhealthy desire for this interloper. Markov pesters Patricia with flowers and notes until Lawrence is forced to visit him to warn him to stay away. There's an amusing hint of Markov's field of expertise in the reading matter Lawrence glances through while waiting, with an article headed, "Man is what his ductless glands make him," which at least maketh the man a little more interestingly than his clothes. Meanwhile we see Markov busying himself in his laboratory with test tubes, and that other requisite of any serious scientific cuckoo, a caged gorilla. Another opportunity for man plus ape suit Ray Crash Corrigan to earn his sideline. Markov's response to laying off stalking Patricia is to show an unimpressed Lawrence an admittedly exact likeness photo of his deceased wife, and then state, "But I'm going to marry her," with cold finality. Understandably, protective dad Lawrence grapples with Markov, who cunningly sees a chance for an experimental guinea pig. He injects Lawrence with a strain of the disease acromegaly, the very one in which he is a world expert, and for which he has been researching a cure. Acromegaly is a horrific real-life condition caused by excessive growth hormone produced from a defective pituitary gland, resulting in enlarged hands, feet, and parts of the head. The tragically afflicted Rondo Hatton parlayed his extreme sufferance of the disease into a brief horror film career that we will cover in the Sherlock Holmes film The Pearl of Death and 1946's House of Horrors and The Brute Man. To begin with, Lawrence develops the side effects of oncoming acromegaly, namely an excess of restless energy. His sudden, relentless ivory tinkling concerns Patricia and her fiancé Bob, Terry Frost, while he becomes increasingly hampered by discomfort in his hands. It isn't long before he manifests the full-blown grotesquerie of an enlarged chin, forehead, and cheekbones resembling the Elephant Man John Merrick. Hiding his awful appearance from his family, Lawrence is forced to go to Markov in secret, as he is the only acknowledged authority. What Lawrence doesn't know speaks even worse of Markov's dastardly deeds. The unspeakable villain had once injected his living wife the same way, to prevent her beauty being enjoyed by anyone else. She committed suicide rather than live as a deformed victim. Markov then stole the identity and life's work of the real doctor. His mad god complex drives him to maniacally relish the possibility of holding humanity to ransom over the cure, the only living man to have such power. This barrage of exposition appalls Maxine to the point where she vows to betray him, a big mistake as he sends his gorilla to ineffectually attempt to murder her in a poorly executed action sequence. Her German shepherd, Ace the Wonder Dog, a blatant canine ripoff of Rin Tin Tin formerly owned by RKO, runs upstairs to help, and the scene simply ends there inconclusively. Lawrence demeans himself with no choice other than to submit to the devil's apprentice Markov, who keeps him bedridden, cruelly offering the remedy only in return for his daughter's hand. This relegation to invalid status for Lawrence hamstrings the second half of the film. Having fumbled the potentially homicidal gorilla, we are now left with a talk-fest between villain and captor, while Markov feeds Patricia misleading information about her father's sanity and condition. Look out for Markov's manservant Steve, played by future horror name Glenn Strange. In 1942, Strange had played Pedro the Werewolf in PRC's The Mad Monster. The 6'5" tall, 220-pound cowboy actor was being made up for another role by Jack Pierce over at Universal, when the makeup supremo noted how useful his build and physiognomy could be as Frankenstein's monster. By the end of 1944, he would inhabit the role, beginning in association across 3 movies, including Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, that was so strong that his features became those used for the studio's wave of children's merchandising in later decades. In this movie, he bides his time mainly opening and answering doors, until a scuffle with rescuer Bob has him shot in loyal service. Patricia and Bob confront the evil Markov, who is then dispatched by Lawrence off-camera. When they discover that Maxine has the knowledge of her boss's X-54 serum to cure Lawrence, all ends well, with the doting threesome watching him restored to frankly miraculous performing glory. Thanks for listening. If you like what you hear, please don't forget to hit subscribe.